Hi everyone, here is round 2 from the 4 NCL, so this is the Sunday game, and after a rather funny Saturday night which featured ice cream, which isn't maybe the best idea, it was now on to the Sunday game with 3Cs2 versus Cambridge University 3. Now I forgot to mention scoring the game against E2 to E4.org.uk2 the other game against John Sugden, where we lost 5-1, and I predicted 6-0 against us, so we actually did quite good. And two of the games, we actually got 2 draws as black, so that's impressive, because it was upgraded by so many points. I think I took a picture of my phone actually of the scorecards, and our average was like 1700 and theirs was like 2100, so to not lose 6-0 I thought was impressive. Now Cambridge University 3 were high graded as well, but I expected maybe like a 4-2 loss instead. I was upgraded by quite a lot. I was facing Craig Saperstein, 1961 FIDE. My conversion is 1778. Now he doesn't have an ECF because he's Federations America, and he's USCF, or I think it's called that. It's 2015. So a tough game ahead. And on the ECF grading site, it's pulling down to 177, although he hasn't got an official grade. So I looked on the database before the game. Or as Americans would say, database. He had 2 games, both was white. Both he opened with E4, and one of them was against the French, and I noticed he played the Tarrasch. Now, in my last game against the Tarrasch against Martin Burns, I'd played that line, the burn variation, but like the aggressive way, with like accepting the double pawns. And I wasn't too comfortable with it, and I didn't fancy playing against someone this irate because it is rather risky. So I decided to have a crash. I bought at the same tournament at Leyland. I'd bought a book called "Play the French" by John Watson, I think it was, and he recommends so we have these moves because he played a Tarrasch. Now, first of all, the moves against the Tarrasch are classical, knight f6. One of his recommendations is c5, and then after you've taken c5 with after you've taken d5 with e pawn, you take back with queen, which leads to a sharp Sicilian-like game where you've got stronger centre versus leading development. You've got white used to play. We've got the Guimard variation, which you'd actually lost quite badly against in the game, but all I really know about this line is you try and force for e5 and it blocks the c pawn, so it's unnatural, but it's not bad. And also a few high class waiting moves. One is a6, one is h6, and the other one is the other book recommendation which Morozevich likes, which is 3 bishop e7 exclamation mark question mark. Now I have mixed opinions of this line. I mean, I used it to crush a 145, well not crush, but to beat a 145 ECF for the British Rapid Play Championships in the penultimate round where both players had to win, and I used it with great effect to beat the joint top seed. It's a good line actually. It looks like a beginner's move, just passively developing the bishop and maybe even losing the move when you play c5, but it's like a waiting move. And he plays bishop d3. And after c5, most of my revision had been a crash course an hour before the game, when the scorecards were up. And now everything in the book seems to say d takes c5. So knight d7, if you try and go with pawn with b4, you got a5. To undermine it. But he plays knight gf3, and nothing in the book gives this move. This position is not featured in the book once, and he doesn't even tell you what to do. So already at move 5 I was out of book, and having to think for myself, which isn't a good idea of having a crash course and an opening before a game. For a more disastrous example, see N Gittins versus P Vachfeld. So I decided to take on d4, which isn't bad. I thought that might be the punishment, although another punishment could be c4. Bishop e2, knight c6, which is about equal, proving the white's opening has been a failure. Takes, knight takes, and I took an e4, which seems a bit risky. Another option was e5, a bit like a Guimard, but with the knight not blocking the c pawn, and after check, swaps. So this continuation, chances are probably about equal. So that's what I'm going to play against you next time if I still play this line. Although I've recently moved on to knight f6, 3 dot knight f6 and some exchange sack line, which is kind of interesting. I played d takes e4, and now he plays knight takes e4, And the more eagle-eyed of you will notice that white's knight is on pre but can't be taken because the bishop b5 check winning the black queen. So I played knight f6, now he castles. An alternative for rapid development also was to take, and then bishop e3, with a good, small advantage to white. He castles, I played bishop d7. Maybe better was to take, and then knight d7, where black's got a solid but slightly cramped position, and this position is like it looks like a Rubinstein now a bit, but I won't say a very good one because it's going to be hard to play b6 and bishop b7. But on the other hand, white's not got any centre pawns and black's still got one. So typically it's like a bit like a Rubinstein, but with a couple of subtle differences, which I'd say. And black also has quite a good kingside pawn majority, but white's got a queenside pawn majority, which seems more significant, so slight advantage to white. After bishop d7, he rapidly develops with bishop f4, and I was already starting to feel some heat, and played knight takes e4. I was thinking of castling, but I was worried about knight d6, but after the card move queen c7, that's nothing for white. So knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, knight b6, and now knight b5. And my dark squares are looking very weak from my bishop passively posted on e7 and his aggressively posted on f4. So I was beginning to start hating my position. I was already thinking quite a lot. So another time scramble maybe ahead. And now I played a very risky but good move in e5. An alternative was to castle, say now bishop c7, say queen c8, bishop d6 takes, queen takes, and I don't like this at all. My dark squares are very weak, and his queen and knight are very aggressively posted, and his knight's coming like in squares like c7, so I didn't like that. And white could also maybe have calmly played queen e2, e5, bishop e3, f5, trying to get the initiative, and now check. Rook a d1 also looks better for white, although not as good as the previous line. So if after castling, white reacts energetically with bishop c7, and he's going to be much better. I play e5, and now the game really starts to hot up. Now my opponent sunk into very deep thought of well over 20 minutes, and probably decided that if he lets me safely castle, then he's got nothing at his opening. Right, let's say he plays bishop back to e3, then I can either castle, I have to say c3, g6. I don't think white's really got any advantage. Black's mobile kingside pawn majority was quite strong as well. Or I could maybe play f5, bishop d5, or if bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, knight takes a7, bishop d7, check. This looks good for black. It's bishop d5 and now f4, bishop d2, a6, now back to a3 and bishop f5. Although black can't castle, he's got a very active position. With all his pieces are good. He's got potential attacking chances on king's side. His king's a bit riskily placed, but this should be quite good for black. This. So now my opponent actually decides to keep my king stuck in the centre with a very dangerous piece sacrifice, which I had analysed that I could just about survive when I played e5, but it'd be tough. But I decided it's the best I could have, and if he doesn't do it, then he'll be in trouble. It won't really have much of an advantage. And you can see he's a bit of a hacker by this next move. His piece sack is knight d6 check. Now when Houdini goes through it, it starts off with saying it's much better for black, but it all of a sudden peters out into not. So with best play it seems to be a forced draw. But that's best play. We are not engines. Of course, I've got to accept, otherwise my king's just forced to move and I'm going to get overwhelmed, so I take it. And after queen takes d6, e takes f4. He said after the game that he'd forgotten that my pawn was on f4. Because he was planning to just advance his f pawn to win. He could force the bishop to e6 and he'll play f4, f5 and win the piece back with interest. So, but it's actually still strong even though he'd missed that point. Now he takes my knight on c6 and I have to take with the pawn. If I take with the bishop, then that's hammered immediately by rook fe1 check and mate next move. So b takes c6 is forced, and now he plays a strong move in rook a d1. But that was after more prolonged thought, so he's kind of admitting his piece sacrifice maybe isn't that strong. If he rushes ahead with rook fe1 check, forcing bishop e6, and now queen takes c6 check, king f8, rook a d1, queen c8, queen e4, and now just ignore the f pawn and go h5, and black's starting to consolidate and be a piece up for 2 pawns once that rook's come into the game with excellent winning chances. And also if f4 is taken, then c2 drops. And white's only got a pawn's worth of compensation here, and the other pawn belongs to black, so black is better. Rook a d1 keeps it equal. And now I was spending a lot of time as well. When you put under pressure a lot, it's easy to crack even at grandmaster level. But of course I'm nowhere near grandmaster level, so I crack even more easily. And I cracked now actually. And went to the right square but with the wrong piece. With rook c8, question mark. The defence was queen c8. And now you would have played, and this is also the best move, queen e5 check. And now I've got 2 options now. First of all, I can allow white a perpetual with this continuation, or I can sacrifice g7 in return to try and win the game, but after takes, rook f8, this continuation, it's still going to be a draw I think, because white's only got a pawn for the piece, but he can easily pick up h7 at any point, and if he keeps his pieces like this, I can't really do anything with my pieces because they're all pinned down to stop all his threats. But on the other hand, because I'm like a piece up, and he can't really do anything either because his pieces have to stay there to pin my pieces down, and there isn't really much both sides can do, to be honest. So this is like a end in a draw as well. And in fact, to be honest, I wouldn't have done for that. I'd have just let him have the draw. He's much higher rated, and I'm black. It's a good bounce back from that thrashing I had yesterday against Sugden. So I'd have been good that. I play rook c8 and I miss his continuation, which is a check on e1. And after the forced bishop e6, you see now my queen's gonna get lost because he sacks the exchange in e6. And after queen takes e6 check, king f8. So when I got to this, I just completely missed all this. That if I am blocking my queen now, he wins both my rooks because of the skewer. I missed that point, so I have to give my queen up. And after rook takes d8, check, king g8, and now h4 to stop the back rank mate by my rook. Now if you assess this position, it's a queen and pawn against 2 rooks, and you think 2 rooks are better than the queen, but this position is miles better for the queen. First of all, my pawns are all weak. f4 is dropping as well, so it's going to be white's going to be up material, but c6 and a7 are weak, and all white's pawn structure is intact. Also, I've only got 1 active rook. This rook's going to take some time to activate, and in the meantime it's like stuck in the corner, so white's effectively up a lot of material. And also my king's vulnerable to checks, picking up pawns, like there's already queen e6 to take c6. So, and the time it's going to take for me to activate my rook, I'm going to probably lose at least 2 pawns. And then even when both my rooks are firing, white's going to have loads of pawns up and be winning. So this position is lost already. Or is it? Remember, at the end of the day, if we get both rooks coordinating, I've got some chance. So first of all, I'll play h5, which gives my king more squares and prefers to bring the rook in via h6 to f6. And maybe rook d2 and get some pressure on 7th rank against f2. Takes an f4. Alternative also was to check, throw in these few checks, and then pick a7 off, but it's going to fall anyway. Queen takes f4, now rook h6, and now queen c7. And by the way, up to when we had that long combination where in the end we had queen against 2 rooks, it was move, I think, 18 or something, and we'd both had about 50 minutes left. But he starts blitzing like mad, like playing every move almost instantly. And I fall into another deep think, and now I have about 20 minutes for the last 16 moves or so. And the amazing enough to think I was thinking of was whether to play rook d2 in one move or rook d1 check and then rook d2. First of all, if I try and defend this pawn, then he just goes queen b7, wouldn't it? So now, and also in a deep think, I realised that I'm going to probably losing, well I am losing, and I can't stop queen takes a7, and then white's got an outside past a pawn, and it's like a time bomb. And I've got to try and stir up enough counterplay with my 2 rooks in the meantime against his king, or to try and win some of his pawns before his pawn queens. So I play rook d1 check, king d2 and rook d2, and forcibly winning the pawn back, although he takes an a7. That's his best. Another option was check. If I go to f7, then I lose a rook. So king h7, queen f4. Now that protects both pawns, because if I take c2, then it's queen f5 and queen e4 win the rook, and queen e5. So white doesn't lose a pawn, but it's best if he takes an a7, because then he gets an outside pass pawn. So takes on c2. And now queen d4, which is a bit like materialistic. It protects b2 and f2 and a good centralised square foot queen, but why not just go for the a pawn? So take that pawn, and now there's a little I can do to stop that pawn. So that's practically a win for white. So queen d4, bit materialistic. I play rook f6, and now I'm starting to get some good counterplay now, even though it's still lost a position. They're very complex 2-rook versus queen endgames, and once the 2 rooks get firing, which they are now, things get very tough for the queen, even when up 2 pawns, and have dangerous outside time bomb, aka the a pawn. He plays king g3, f4 seems better to me. Now I go check, king h3, rook f6, piling up an f2. Now he plays f4. Of course, if he'd have gone king g3, I just have checked and took a draw because I'm losing. And now rook c1, which seems the best way to continue putting up resistance. An alternative was rook g6, but now queen e4 seems to stop everything, and now he's going to advance his a pawn, and the king and pawn endgames are all lost. So if we swap everything off, well, I'm just down a pawn, and he's going to advance his a pawn, distract my king away, and then pick my g and h pawns off, and then queen is f and h pawns, so that'd be lost. So another big problem is that all the king and pawn endgames are lost for me, so I have to be really careful. So rook c1, trying to get some counterplay behind his king, and now I think he should have gone for his pawn again, because I can't stir enough counterplay up. Say check, check, and now say rook c1, then queen e4 again, and there's not really anything I can do to stop his a pawn, and the evaluations are well over 2 pawns for the engines, even though white's only pawn up in material. So he throws in this check, I play king h7, and I plays queen e8, going after my h5 pawn. However, this move is a careless blunder. Well, queen d8 check has thrown away a lot of white's advantage, but to keep any advantage he has to play g3, check, and now rook a1, and now he has to play a3 as well, so his pawn's not going to be going up as fast. And again, white is winning, but it's not as much as in the as what it could have been, and it's going to be tougher to win this. But it's got more counterplay. However, he blunders with queen e8, and this actually blunders a pawn, because I can win the h4 pawn with a series of checks. I check there, and now I have g6 check, and now here comes another critical moment. Now, white can keep an advantage with king f2, rook takes h4, now queen e4, and again the material's even. White's better because of his outside pass pawn, so it's going to be really tough for black to draw, but black's got a lot of counterplay now, because all of a sudden the pawns on the king, the king and pawn endgames probably aren't going to be as winning for white now. Now black's going to have some counterplay on the king side, because if you can imagine, let's say we swap the g2 pawn and white's queen for both my rooks, and I can advance my kingside pawns a bit, then even though white's got this past time bomb, maybe I can get the kingside pawns going, so king and pawn games might be okay. Also, I've just won a pawn, which makes it difficult for white, a little harder, and there's more counterplay now against white's king with that pawn missing. However, my pawn actually was king f3, which actually is just a complete outright blunder, which I just casually take the h4 pawn because I've got a little time left, but I could have played rook f1 check, and now he has to abandon he loses the f4 pawn instead, because if he goes to e3 then I'll win his queen with rook e1 check, so he has to go to e2. I take an f4, and now let's say he plays g3, then I can play rook ff6, threatening to win his queen. He has to move his king away, and I check. King d1 takes b2 pawn, and now all of a sudden I'm up material. I have 2 rooks against his queen, and he's against his queen. And in fact, his a2 pawns, he's outside past pawns, like almost lost. In fact, he plays a4, and then I take his g3 pawn, and all of a sudden black's now got 2 rooks and 3 pawns against the queen and 2 pawns, and the h4 pawn's probably going to fall as well. I mean, and in fact, white's best given my engine is to have a perpetual by taking h5 and then just going backwards and forwards with queen, which is a typical perpetual check pattern, by the way. You have to be aware of with queen h5 to e8 to a black king on g8 and a pawn on g7. And that's given us white's best. If you don't do that, he risks losing, because look at black's rooks, they're like going to have loads of mate threats here now. I mean, there's already rook g1 mate if white misses it, or rook g1 winning queen. So in fact, black's got enough counterplay to force white to take a draw, and that could have been played. Rook takes h4, however. Now it's similar to other position, but I'm in nasty time pressure. He plays g3, so f4 is never going to drop. But again, f4 isn't dropping anyway. Now he could have just gone for it with his pawn. g3, and now rook h4. That was time pressure. I missed his next move. Rook h2 was better. Queen e5, rook h3, 5. So discontinuation. And black's got some counterplay, although probably not enough, but maybe enough to cause some drawing chances and maybe cause an upset. And he has proved he can blunder, because he was playing way too quick and missing stuff like that. So rook h4, and now the move that I missed is there moves where the queen moves all the way from the top rank to the back rank. Queen e1, this backward queen move, and all of a sudden I start my position with about a minute left at the last 5 moves. Thinking, well, I had a couple of minutes, but I went down to like less than a minute after this move, thinking, oh crap. Basically, I can never take g3 off because the king and pawn games are going to be winning for white with that outside passed pawn. And to be honest, I can't. My rooks are completely trapped, and I can never go h4 to try and free because it's defended more times than it's attacked. And to be honest, if white keeps it like that, white's got like a bit of a fortress now, and he's just going to go a4, a5, a6, a7, a8 equals queen. It's a time bomb, that pawn, which really cannot be stopped now. And in fact, it is completely lost this position. So the last rook takes h4 and rook h4 just completely blundered the game away. That should have been drawn. I missed like 2 chances to draw this game. It gets to 1961. And to be honest, the rest doesn't really need much comment. I play rook f6, just trying to desperately get the rooks back into the game. But like in the previous example, well, early in the game when I lost a couple of pawns, like trying to get the rooks back into the game, then this is the same thing's going to happen. White's going to win pawns, so I'm getting rooks back into the game. And it's a shame I blew my chance in this game. He plays a4, finally. God knows how many moves after winning a7 pawn, getting his time bomb going. Now I play c5, just trying to get the rook into defense as fast as possible, although it's too slow. If g5, trying to steal some counterplay against white's king, which I didn't have time to look at, check. a5 and say takes, g1, trying to get behind white's king, a6, ignore it, check, king e2, of course the king e3 then, black wins all of a sudden, but king e2 and black's run out of counterplay. He can even though he's going to take an f4, this a pawn's too far advanced. This is a better try though, to be honest. There's still room for white to go wrong, like with that, like he could lose his queen. But c5 and now queen e5. This practically ends all resistance, forking both pawns. And again, in desperate time trouble, drop both pawns. Rook h2, b4, now there's 2 connected passes. It's over 5 pawns now for white this. I play rook d2 with, well, I had 1 second left when I pressed my clock. Precisely 1 second. I'd use that all the time. And now he actually fought for quite a bit here, because he thought I probably was going to lose on time. Regains his composure and throws in a couple of pointless checks, and then pushes his a pawn to a5. I fought for about 15 minutes and then resigned. Well, of course, white's up a lot of material and he's just going to push them 2 pawns to victory. There's nothing I can do. Pointless carrying on. It's a shame that, to be honest, it was a much improved performance from the previous day. I had missed 2 draws, which is rather depressing. and that would have been a draw against the 1961 FIDE. But he was a bit of a hacker in, and that was a very good sacrifice that, which although it wasn't fully sound, it caused massive practical problems, and I certainly cracked under pressure. But anyway, I thought this is quite an exciting game, this as well. This is very instructive in like keeping the king in the centre. It shows a lot about the advantages of 2 rooks against the queen and the advantages of a queen against 2 rooks, and the certain positions which is better for. Overall, this is a very instructive game. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see many more instructive games, then please subscribe to the channel. But for now, well, by the way, we lost 5-1 again. Just a very good win for Daniel. The rest all lost. But anyway, please leave any comments and thoughts. Thanks very much.